Hello, hello, hola a todos, hello everyone. This is Christian Landaeta saying hello from my YouTube channel, and we have a very interesting guest today, Mr. Nick Fletcher. Welcome, Nick, to my conversation today. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Christian. It's great to be here. Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Okay, well, it's an honor to talk to you. I've been reading a lot and I've been listening to some music, and I'm amazed to see the diversity of music you've made through the years. And I was trying to remember because I've seen Steve Hackett here in Chile like 3 times, but I'm not sure if you ever came to Chile to play with this band.
What have I ever been?
Yeah.
Is that the question? Oh, no, I haven't. I have not been with over there. No, I haven't. No.
Okay. So I'm going to read something that maybe you're going to remember. It says here, Nick Fletcher is probably the best jazz rock guitarist in the country. His fluency is astounding. Plus, he possesses a first-rate classical guitar technique to boot. I find the combination of him working with my brother John is totally incendiary. I consider Nick Fletcher to be an absolute star. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I think that was some very kind words from Steve Hackett.
Yeah. Yeah.
Indeed.
Well, I was amazed.
Very nice words.
Yeah, I was amazed to hear that you've been recording some music with John. I admire John's work as well because I know his music on Steve's records. Then I see that your new album, The Cloud of Unknowing, is the new work after other previous works like Cycles of Behaviors.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That's right.
I also know that you've been working with an interesting band. I see here that you have Dave Bainbridge on the keyboards.
That's correct.
Stuart Barbour on vocals and Caroline Bonnet. Is that it?
Correct. That's right. Yeah.
She's on keys, and she's also, I think, a sound engineer and producer of some kind.
That's correct. Yes, she's also my producer. Yeah.
Okay. Then we have Russ Wilson on drums and Tim Harris on bass. I think that Tim used to work with an important Yes member, Bill Bruford. Is that right?
Yeah, it's correct. Yes, he used to play in the band called Earthworks with Bill. That's right.
Yeah. Now, how did this project came to be, Nick? And is this Cloud of Unknowing some sort of metaphor? How did the inspiration come from?
Okay, so the new album arose on the back of the previous album, which was Cycles of Behavior, and some of the tracks on that album were a kind of social commentary about the state of the world and you know how things seem to come round that you don't want to come round. So history repeats itself in a bad way sometimes. But there's a bit of a social commentary on that album about that kind of idea. And on this album, this was even more of a concept album based upon finding spiritual meaning and purpose through difficult times, which you know, many of us have been going through. Yeah. So that's how the album came about. And that came, and that album is it has actually been released through my website already, which is nickfletcherguitarmusic.com. But the official release date of the album is the 2nd of September.
Okay. Yeah. And could you find some peace and tranquility after completing the album in the band yourself?
Well, the album itself came out of a lot of soul searching during lockdown, because obviously as a musician, I wasn't able to perform or do anything for a long time, which was quite frustrating. But it also gave me the opportunity to write a lot, because obviously writing is a big part of what I do. So it gave me more time to write, and I was quite intrigued by a lot of things I was reading throughout that time, which was to do, I was reading a lot of sort of writings of Christian mysticism from the medieval period, and I was also looking into Greek mythology as well. So the two things kind of coalesced and came together and became sort of the springboard for the inspiration for the album, about finding purpose and meaning. The album itself is one of those albums that has a beginning and a definite end as a whole. So it's got a concept, and it kind of takes you on a journey which takes us through various soul-searching experiences, where we have to confront, certain things, either through lyrics or through the music or through some of the soundscapes that I've used to create an atmosphere before the music starts, to take us on a kind of quest and a kind of journey, as part of this sort of search for meaning.
And could you find some sort of link between this Christian mysticism and the Greek mythology? Is there any connection in any side, any angles?
Well, I mean, the main thing is that a lot of the writings, whether you look at mythology or whether you look at the sort of mystical writings from the church, they all have similar parallels in that they're all kind of using metaphor to give expression to what we're looking for and what we're searching for. I think it's the metaphors that are used, and the myths that are proposed through all these things help us find meaning, because before the age of science and before the age of reason, a lot of people had to try and discover for themselves through mythology and through their inner state of mind, their inner consciousness, and what was going off within people, because we didn't know, no one understood psychology or mental health in those days. That's something that's new to humanity in a sense. And so those stories that we told ourselves many years ago reveal a lot about the human condition. And I wanted to pursue that with music through that.
Well, I'm sure you, as anybody else, you said you were very frustrated, and maybe, I mean, most of us were afraid. We were facing, and we still are facing, something that is unknown. And up to what degree did you feel fear, and how did you fight that? I mean, music is a real healer. I think music helped lots of people during the lockdown.
Absolutely. For me, it's very therapeutic. It's it takes you away from having to face a lot of those things, and it takes you to another place creatively. And I think hopefully when people listen to it, it kind of takes them to another place, and takes them away from all of that. But it's still a questing, searching album in a lot of ways. That's how I intended it.
Are you, I suppose you're a religious person. For what I've seen your discography, you used to be making records of devotional music. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I've been on quite a sort of inner journey through many different things, really. I'm not of any particular, at the moment, wouldn't say I'm of any particular sort of religious persuasion. I'm very, very open to teachings from various religious groups, and what have you. I'm particularly interested in Buddhism and as well, and I think that also crept into the album, because there's a certain element of on some of the lyrics that I wrote for the album that were to do with how we perceive reality, and coming at reality from a perspective of and without having a preconception of what it is we're experiencing, which is quite a Buddhist sort of way of looking at things in a lot of ways. And I was quite intrigued by that, and I think some of the lyrics express that on the album.
Have you been influenced by somebody in your family? I don't know, how you became interested in all that Buddhism and having an open mind, as you say, to different.
Not really. I think it's just having I think I have a kind of I have a kind of searching mentality about life, and I'm curious. I think I think that trying to find meaning and purpose are very important, but I think that many years ago, I kind of was unsure about the whole idea of what is spiritual truth, what is truth, and that's something that I've been wrestling with for a long time. Is there any such thing as objective truth, or is it sort of our perspective on things? And everyone's perspective is different,
It's special that you use the word wrestling, not searching.
Yeah. 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 Well, some of that, if you listen to some of the music, you'll probably hear some wrestling going on.
There is, absolutely, that's what I was going to say. It's very energetic, and there's lots of things going on, like trying to find answers. Quite interesting. Now, I've also read about the importance of Celtic music, and Dave Bainbridge. I think he was the founder of the Christian band Iona. Is that the name, Steve? Iona?
That's correct.
Yeah. Is this the same guy from the Progzilla radio? It has nothing to do.
Well, Dave's been involved in progressive music for decades, really. But I knew Dave. We knew each other when we were very young. We were friends when we were sort of teenagers. And we've always worked together at various times on things. But Dave's been very busy more recently with his band that he works in called Life Signs, with a chap called John Young. And he's played a lot with the Straubs as well over the last few years. That's been the main sort of gig. But he also has his own music, and has released loads of solo albums, as well as a band called Celestial Fire that he had until recently. And Dave's one of the for me, he's one of the great progressive rock musicians, around anywhere. Certainly in the UK and Europe. Possibly in the world. He's a magnificent talent. So it's always great to be able to, call on Dave and ask him if he'd like to be involved in anything that I'm working on, I've written. And he always brings something magical to the table. So, and I think he did on this album. Did
you say Celestial Fire, the band?
Yeah, that's right. That was Dave's band. After he had Iona, he had a band called Celestial Fire for quite a while.
Okay. And I hear that there's a very important character who's been there in the band. I don't know if you ever shared stage with Nick Becks.
Nick, yeah. I don't know Nick very well, actually, but we have met a couple of times. And of course, Nick's done various gigs with various prog bands, and of course, he spent many years working with Steve. I think now he's been working with Stephen Wilson. But I have not actually worked with Nick. But Nick used to play with Dave in the band Iona. Yeah,
that's right.
So,
that's right.
Yeah.
And what's your comfort zone? Nick the player, Nick the songwriter. Where do you feel better?
Primarily I consider myself a writer of music, and the guitar is a tool for expressing, what I write, really. I spent many years as a session guitar player, doing all sorts of stuff like that, but I never felt comfortable with it because it was never really my thing. I need to be able to express creatively what I want to say through music. And when you're doing sessions, it basically just, you're a jobbing musician who does what they're asked to do, and that's fine, but it's not really me. So I stopped doing that a number of years ago. Particularly when I concentrate on my classical playing, because I'm also a classical musician as well as a progressive rock musician. So there was all that to pursue, which took up a lot of time, and I do a lot of concerts, and I write a lot of classical music as well as the progressive rock music.
Yeah, to be very honest, and from the point of view of a simple music passionate fan, it's not very easy to understand how both worlds come together, because there's a lot of prog that has a lot of classical in it. What's the origin? That's where everything comes from, in my opinion. So, but I think I suppose it must be difficult to stand on both stages. Classical and prog.
They're very different disciplines, really. Yeah, they are. Although there is a meeting point in some respects in the fact that progressive music is an expanded form of composition, in the same way that classical music is. So I think that the two work very well together. It's really why I have such a close affinity with John, because like John, we know he's the same. He has a foot in both worlds. John, in fact, John and myself have a classical duet together, flute and guitar, as well as the fact that I play in the John Hackett band, and I also have my own solo progressive music thing as well. So John is very similar to me in that respect, and so we have a lot in common. Yeah.
Is that where the Overnights Know for guitar and flute came from? Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of our albums. We've done 3 albums actually as a duet.
Okay.
And Overnight Snow was the first one we did. So we've done quite a lot of concerts together, and we've done some work with Steve as well, which has been nice. We've done some gigs with Steve.
Yeah,
so we've had 2 guitarists, obviously, and John on the flute, which has been that was always nice to do. Yeah.
In what way has Steve contributed to that sound of the duo? Because he comes from a totally different, area. He also has an acoustic. He's acoustically minded, I guess. He loves playing acoustic guitar. Yeah, you can hear that he has made records. But how does Steve enhanced the sound of the duo? In what way?
Well, when we've played together, it's been really quite easy, because Steve's been heavily influenced by a lot of the same things that I was influenced by. He spent a lot of his childhood listening to Baroque music and listening to people like Segovia, who were great influences on Steve, and as they were me. So he knows a lot about that kind of music, although he doesn't actually play it, but very much. But he has an understanding of it, which it feels quite natural to him. In fact, Steve once said to me many years ago, he said that he feels more like he should have been a classical musician than a rock musician, which I thought was an interesting.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah,
because there's a lot about a lot of what he's interested in, and his way of working, and this idea of expanded compositions and so forth. He's very much from that background as well. Both him and John were steeped in that kind of music when they were younger. They both listened to it a lot together. It's just that they kind of like, Steve found himself also drawn to the blues, and then he found himself in a band that became really quite famous.
That's it.
And so that was it for Steve. His classical leanings kind of became less, because he was so taken up with his work with Genesis.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until Steve started exploring the solo stuff where he, for example, his first album, Voyage of the Acolyte, where more of that came to the fore. And of course, he got John involved then as well, because John had moved definitely in the classical direction, and was definitely a classical flautist at that time. So so it's always been very easy working with Steve with that kind of thing, because he has an understanding and an affinity with that music, partly through his upbringing, what he listened to, but also because of his relationship with John as well. And John's knowledge of classical music is really quite wide ranging. He's very knowledgeable with
that. Nick, you've say you've been influenced. You admire people like, Steve, of course, Steve Hackett, also Ralph Towner, Jan Ackerman, that I also admire a lot, because we are big fans of Focus here in Chile. Focus was one of the few European bands to be pressed on record here back in the 70s. And Steve Howe, really? We had a very poor record industry here, so very few bands were released back in the day when they were at the peak. So could you expand a little bit on the influences you had and the admiration you have for these people?
Yeah, well, going back to the 70s, obviously, like people like Steve were very influential, but Jan Ackerman was very influential too, because both and Steve Howe, those 3 guitarists, were very much very open-minded to all sorts of other forms of guitar playing. They weren't just blues players or rock players. They had a very open mind to different musical worlds. And for me, I didn't know it at the time as a young person growing up, but it really sort of struck a chord within me, because I felt that I wanted to explore these other avenues of music as well. And basically, you know, when you're a teenager growing up, if you've got role models like that, they kind of made it cool to get into that kind of thing. So I explored all sorts of stuff with folk music and with as well as rock music and jazz and classical. But it was a direct result of musicians like that and guitarists like that, which kind of gave the green light, I think, to a lot of people of my generation to explore that stuff and get into it. And so that was you know, in that sense, that all those players are very big influences on the direction that I think I was going to take in later life. Yeah. Obviously, there's been other guitar players that are very influential as well. I mean, David Gilmour from the 70s, a very great influence. Focus, like you say, as a band were very influential because again, they had that classical tradition immersed in what they did, but also they had a lot of improvisation and the jazz influences. They had lots of influences which really, you know, floated my boat, as they say. You know, I really liked all that.
Yeah.
I like the way in which they integrated it into something that was original, but yet was obviously coming from all these different musical genres. And in a sense, although my music is not like Focus, what I do, and particularly like on this new album or the last album that I did, I think that's what I do. I think I put in a melting pot of all different types of music. So there's some people say, oh, Nick sounds a bit like jazz fusion at times, and then other times it's progressive rock or there's some classical or whatever. But for me, it's all just one thing, which is why progressive rock is a great home for it, because it encompasses, you know, all these different avenues that can be explored.
A little anecdote. I once had the chance to meet Chick Corea here, and I asked him, how do you focus on when you're writing music with the acoustic band and the electric band? And he said, well, I don't know, I don't understand your question. It's just more music, he said. It's just music.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, Chick was such a phenomenal musician, wasn't he? You know, I love Chick's playing in all sorts of genres, and of course, Return to Forever were a great influence for me when I was younger. Introduced me to Al Di Meola.
Exactly, yeah.
The phenomenal guitar player.
Yeah.
And of course, so, like you say, but you know, like Chick had his hands in these, you know, in all sorts of different music, but he fused it all together into something which was, you know, bigger than the sum of the parts. I think, you know, and I think that's great if you can do that. And
before we leave the subject behind, I also was lucky enough when I was working for radio here to meet Thijs van Leer of Focus. He came back in 2002, and I asked him to sign some records. And when I showed the, you know, are you familiar with Dona Nobis Pacem, the rock mass? He said, this is the best I made, the rock mass, Dona Nobis. Yeah, a mass in Latin with Chilean musicians. We had Mario Argandoña, who is a session musician. He's played with Scorpions and John Lord and important people. And Tato Gomez of a band called Embrujo. So, well, now, could you tell us a little bit on your studies of classical guitar, because you were trained formally, weren't you?
Yeah, I wasn't conservatoire trained, but I did spend a little bit of time at a music college when I was younger. I was lucky enough to get invited onto the course, and I spent about 3 years there working on classical guitar. And when I left that college, I was obviously interested in that music, but I was also interested in pursuing the rock music as well. But there was not much call for it when in those days. Progressive music was kind of something that had died away a bit. You know, it was difficult to get work playing that kind of music. So I diversified into jazz. I was interested in that, and because of the improvisational nature of it, I got into a bit of that. And I became a session musician as well. So I was able to do all sorts of different things. I didn't take up playing the classical again seriously till about 1990. And then I devoted myself to it for you know, professionally, quite in depth, really. And I ended up getting doing some recordings doing that, as well as some sessions that I was required on to play classical guitar. But I did some recordings, which were well received, and started doing lots of solo recitals. And I still do that today. You know, I still do lots of that. So I got really immersed in that, and then I started writing much for the classical guitar, and I got a publisher in Canada who published all my works, and so that's another area that I still love and work on, as well as the electric guitar.
And do you have several or a handful of albums of Christian music, devotional music as well?
Yeah,
I've been listening to some of that on Spotify.
yeah.
Do you still make that music? Do you still feel
No,
attracted?
I haven't done anything of that sort for a long time. It must be, I don't know, maybe 15 more years since I did anything like that. Probably more than that. Yeah, I got invited into that world because I was working with some people who were quite well known in that scene, and I ended up getting asked to do some recordings of, asked me to do arrangements actually of a lot of hymns and songs and so forth. So I did a lot of classical guitar arrangements of that kind of music. In fact, I did several albums of it, which are, like you say, still available on Spotify and iTunes and places like that. I mean, the CDs are physically long gone, but they are still there, out there on, for people to listen to and to stream and download. But my main contact through that was that one of the companies that I worked for, the lady who was the A&R manager was Caroline Bonnet, and that's my relation with Caroline. It was through doing that music, and she's also a record producer and a mastering engineer. And so when I came to do my own recordings of the rock stuff, for me, she was somebody I could call on because I know that she's got them just a fantastic, ears, and is a great producer because she knows exactly what's required for the music that you're doing, and helps you with the performances and gives you direction as to where we're going with things so that I don't get lost, because I'm a kind of musician that, once I get immersed in what I'm doing, sometimes I don't see the wood for the trees, as they say. I get very immersed in it. And so for me to be objective and make a definitive statement about, yeah, that piece is finished, or right, that is the right guitar solo for that piece, or whatever, is hard. I find it difficult to be objective. So having someone who's objective is really, really helpful to guide you on the right path to get the end result as good as it can be. So yeah, that's my connection with her.
I used to teach English to some sound engineer students here. I still do, in fact. And I also used to teach people who were studying music production, which at the beginning I thought was a difficult career. How can you teach music production? What does the music producer really does? What is his role? You said that she keeps you in a frame. She helps you decide what should be there, what shouldn't be there.
That's right. Yeah, it's direction, really. It's objective direction, and you've got to work with people that you trust, because you got to know that they understand where you're going with this and what you're trying to achieve, and so they can objectively, guide you to reach your goal of what it is you're trying to achieve. I think it's invaluable. I think that the role of a producer on any record is actually is not. It's a bit of something that most people don't really understand unless you're actually a musician in that studio environment. It's hard to grasp and understand exactly what they're doing. But in a sense, a producer is a bit like a film director. They have the overview of the whole thing, so they're able to sort of guide the cameraman to get the right shots and get the actors to say the lines in the right way. So I might play something, and then Caroline will say, "Well, look, why don't you try that again, and why don't you try phrasing it more like that? Because I think that will work better. What do you reckon?" So we'll try it, and sometimes I'll say, "No, I'm not keen on that." But very often, in fact, most of the time, her suggestions are very, very useful, and I would agree with, and I think it enhances the overall outcome of what you get on an album. So many albums these days are not actually, in my opinion, are not that well produced. They can be well recorded and they've got some great music, but it's production that's very important, because it keeps the keeps the cohesiveness and the direction of the album on track. You know, I think it's a very important aspect of making albums, really.
Now, Nick, I think you joined Steve Hackett's band back in 2015. How long did you play with him?
You mean John Hackett?
With Steve Hackett.
No, I've never played. I've only played with Steve doing acoustic things, and Steve has guested with the John Hackett band. But I play with John Hackett, not Steve.
I know about John Hackett, but I thought you had gone on tour. No.
No, not with Steve.
Okay.
No. Well, I mean, I've done some gigs where Steve has joined the John Hackett band for some things we've done.
Okay.
But I've not actually toured with Steve. No.
But you've been involved in other bands like Trivial Pursuit, Staircase.
All sorts of stuff. Yeah, I mean they're going back a long way, but they're all sort of jazz fusion bands that I did when I left college. Yeah. Back in the 80s, and some of that was with Dave Bainbridge as well. Funnily enough. Yeah.
And are there any? I mean, I suppose there are records available, or there were. There used to be.
Oh, they'd be hard to track down. There were some things made, but yeah, you might find them on some kind of second-hand CD site or something somewhere. But yeah, they'd be very hard to track down. Yeah, because there were very limited runs of pressings and so forth of all that stuff. So
I see.
Yeah, quite rare, really.
Okay. Now there's an important album. I think it's Cathedral of Dreams. There's an extended piece, Iberian Fantasy. Is that it? Yeah. I think it's a very interesting album. I think that.
Have you heard it, Christian?
I have. I think I found some pieces of it somewhere. You know, you have so many platforms. You say, sorry, this is my cat wants to ask. Yeah.
That's all right.
Sorry, it's inevitable.
That's okay.
Yeah. So yeah. In fact, I was asking Dave if I could. I would like to play your new album on. I have a radio show back on a next Radio Colleagues radio, online radio, and I have a show every Tuesday. So I think.
Well, if you want.
Sorry.
Carry on. Have we lost sound?
No, here I am again. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
My cat, Peta, she wants to say hello. I was just, telling you that I would like to play your new album on my. I have a radio show every Tuesday night on a next Radio Colleagues online radio station. So yeah.
Did Dave Hill must have sent you some files?
Yeah, he said that. Yeah,
great. Well, I mean, feel free to play whatever you want, Christian. That'd be fantastic. Yeah, great.
Yeah. I was asking. I was wondering if you could give me a sort of ID. I think now is the right time before this. I have a few minutes with you. The radio station that I work for, I contribute with this show is called Memories of Radio Concerto. Radio Concerto was the leading station back in the 80s and 70s here. And so maybe the name of the show is Concierto 22. That is 22 in Spanish. Concierto 22. Maybe you could say, well, this is Nick Fletcher, and I invite you to listen to my music on Concierto 22, whatever. You get the idea.
I got the Concierto, but what was the other?
22.
Part? What was the
22. 22. 22. Let me send it on the chat. Concierto 22, which means 22.
22.
22. Yeah, that's the name of the show.
22.
Yeah, so you can invite the audience to listen to your music on that particular show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall I say that now?
If you want, yeah, please.
Okay, so you're listening to Concierto 22, and this is Nick Fletcher.
Okay, let's do another one that says, this is Nick Fletcher, and I invite you to listen to my music on Concierto 22 tonight.
Okay.
Is that possible?
I just need to get the, see where the chat is, because I've lost the chat to actually, I want to get the pronunciation right, obviously. So
Did
I
you
can't
do you see
see
the
it.
do you see the do you see the green button in the middle, at the bottom in the middle?
Oh
Shares.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Share.
to the left is the chat. You could click on that.
Is it on? Is it just participants? Is it?
No, the one to the left.
That's the, oh, all I've got is video.
No,
To
you
the
have
left.
you have security, participants, chat. No?
Hang on.
Okay.
Chat.
Yeah,
Is it on that?
that's it.
Okay. Yeah. Let me just write all this down. So.
I just wrote it. Can you see it?
Right. Brilliant. Yeah. So say that now.
Yeah, this is Nick Fletcher, and I invite you to listen to my music on Concierto 22 or 22, whatever you want.
Okay, yeah. So I say that now?
Sure. You froze, by the way. Yeah, but anyway, yeah.
Okay, this is Nick Fletcher, and I invite you to listen to my music on Concierto 22, and I hope you enjoy it.
Excellent. Excellent.
Is that all right? Sorry about that.
Very good. No, it's very fine. Now, just one last question, Nick, about the. I think that you participated in a festival in Holland back in 2019, Prog Dreams Festival.
Yes. Yeah.
I haven't heard of that festival. Yeah, you played with John, didn't you?
Yeah, that was in Holland, in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Okay. And could you capture any of that on tape or on digital? Did you record the show? Is there a live recording of that or something where I could see that? Or
no, I'm not sure. There might have been some clips on YouTube. You might find some. I can't remember, to be honest, if there were, but there might be on YouTube if there is anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that we do the John Hackett band does a version of that famous King Crimson track called "I Talk to the Wind."
Oh yeah.
And I think that might have been filmed at that particular festival.
Okay.
So if you type in "I Talk to the Wind" John Hackett band, it may come up.
I will. Now, where can people find your music? I know you have this Nick Fletcher guitarmusic.com, and there's a shop inside that webpage. You also are on Bandcamp, are you not?
Not anymore. No. If people want to purchase my music, they can buy the CDs, or they can buy a high resolution download direct from my website, which is www.nickfletcherguitarmusic.com. But I do have distribution around the world. There are various outlets around the world that do actually sell and stock my album.
Like which ones?
There's a place in Europe called Just for Kicks. They stock it. There's some companies in America. They're only usually small companies, but they do sell it. I'm not sure what the distribution is in South America, whether there is any at all. I don't
think so. But we always manage to find good music from here. Yeah,
but if any of your listeners would like to hear my music, they can download it from my site, or they can purchase a CD, and it'll get posted off to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
One funny thing, I was just watching a video a few minutes ago with you playing with Shirley Novak. I know works with Caroline at CSN Media. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, something very different from the progressive and jazz rock.
Oh, that would have been some kind of session thing I did. Was it? Yeah.
Folky thing.
Again, that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be me doing some session thing for You find all sorts of stuff out there. You'll also find some footage on YouTube of me playing with a Chinese lady called Ling Peng.
Oh,
doing some world music,
with
the Chinese instrument. So, yeah.
Fun things.
But that's not what I usually do. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for your time, Nick. It's been a pleasure and an honor to talk to you, meeting you. I hope to be keeping in touch with you and Dave, and I will send you a copy of the show as soon as I put it on the air online.
That's fantastic. I appreciate your interest, Christian. Wonderful.
Thank you for the great music, and stay alive, stay well, take care.
Yeah, and you too.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.